Hello everybody, it is Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel where I am joined today by my lovely little vampire pumpkin friend. Because Halloween is nearing and I thought that we needed a friend here with us, so I made one myself. This little guy actually has been living on my husband's desk, and I had a lot of fun crocheting him as we were watching our beloved Mariners baseball team win the division for the first time since 2001. October baseball is right around the corner. It is a great time to be outside and enjoying a slight break in the ridiculously hot temperatures here. And it's also a great time to continue on with some books for my TBR here. So I'm gonna set Mr. Man down up here. There you go, buddy. Keep an eye out there. And I want to share with you a couple more books that I intend to read this October. So when I did my original autumnal TBR, I think I didn't realize how quickly I was going to get through some of the books from that. So I have only 2 books left currently that I had on that TBR. And I'm kind of looking ahead now into October, November for what I actually want to get read during this period of time. And this all kind of started because my husband and I made a plan together that we are going to read Frankenstein together by Mary Shelley in the month of October. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I've always said that my favorite classic novel is Jane Eyre, but lately in recent years I've become more convinced that it might actually be Frankenstein. I don't know. It's really hard to decide what your favorite classic novel is. But anyway, he has never read it before, so I have this edition here that we're going to be reading from. The subtitle is Annotated for Scientists, Engineers, and Creators of All Kinds, and the editors are David H. Gustin, Ed Finn, and Jason Scott Robert. So there are a lot of critical essays and footnotes and things in this book. I have not actually read this particular edition of it yet, so that is going to be a new experience for me, even though the text is familiar. So this is basically, I have the entire month of October to read Frankenstein along with him. All right. If you watched my Shaktember videos, I had a wrap-up of that I posted recently, and I discussed my introduction to the plays of Christopher Marlowe. So I was aware of Marlowe, but I hadn't actually read any of his plays until this past month when I read Edward II as part of Shaktember. And I liked it so much that I decided I would like to continue reading his plays. Again, not really a hard time limit on this, but I thought it would be a lot of fun to read Dr. Faustus this October. It's kind of a classic story of demons and selling one's soul to the devil as the terrible price you pay for all the knowledge in the world. And I really loved Marlowe's writing. I loved kind of the darkness he doesn't really shy away from within human nature in these plays. I also think that if, some of the language of Shakespeare is a bit intimidating for you, Marlowe's writing is a bit more straightforward. There's definitely some archaic language in it, similar to Shakespeare. The edition that I have does have a glossary in the back and pretty supportive footnotes to help you get through that. But for the most part, I did find it a lot easier to read without having to constantly scan back and forth between the text and then the notes, the annotations, the way that I have to for Shakespeare. So I'm going to be reading Dr. Faustus, and I didn't realize this until the end of the month, but there is a new Stephen Greenblatt book out that is all about Christopher Marlowe, which I purchased. It's called Dark Renaissance, The Dangerous Times and Fatal Genius of Shakespeare's Greatest Rival. I know that Marlowe is a figure that we actually don't know a lot about. There aren't a ton of details from his personal life that survive. And I will link Nicole's video from A Day of Small Things. She is one of the co-hosts of Shaktember, and she did a great video about the play Edward II and just kind of some of the historical background that's really useful to know if you're beginning your journey into reading Marlowe or any of the other non-Shakespeare Renaissance poets and playwrights. I really did love my time with Tyrant by Stephen Greenblatt, which I read for Shaktember. And I'm really interested to see like what his writing about Marlowe is going to be like. I always enjoy reading his books, so that's going to be fun as well. And then I guess for kind of the last book in our Shakespeare / Renaissance writerly phase, I am going to be rereading a book that I read earlier this year, and that is Hamnet, A Novel of the Plague by Maggie O'Farrell. The movie for this is coming out later this year. I already can't wait to see it, and the place where I go to do my book clubs is reading this for the general fiction book club at the beginning of November. That's not a book club that I attend regularly, but I really loved this book. It is one of the books that stuck with me from the first half of this year. It made me cry actual tears, which is very difficult to do because I found the story so incredibly moving emotionally and just beautifully written. And I really wanted to reread it before the movie came out, but also discuss it with a couple other people. I know that my husband's going to read this at some point. It's a little unclear to me whether he has decided he wants to read it ahead of watching the movie, or if he wants to watch the movie first, so then if he likes the book better, he doesn't feel kind of let down by the adaptation. I think he's kind of waffling back and forth between those two. But because I've already read the book, I kind of don't care if I reread it before watching the movie. And I think the discussion will be a lot of fun. So that's that. Then we have kind of an assortment of different things. We have 3 novels and a play. One of the novels and the play are new, and then the other 2 I have had on my TBR shelf for a couple of years at this point. So why don't we start with the ones that have been on the shelf the longest? Like I said, I'm really enjoying the arrival of October baseball and the sort of back to school feeling that this time of year always brings up for me. And that is why I picked up this romance novel a couple years back. I think I picked this up, from Half Price Books. And this is Play for Me by Libby Hubsher. I have not read a romance in a little while, so I will read you kind of the blurb of this. I think this could just be a really fun vibe. So Sophie Doyle has her dream job as the head athletic trainer for her favorite baseball team, Go Red Sox, a handsome boyfriend, and easy access to the finest cannoli in Boston. When she loses all 3 and the World Series to boot, she's forced to apply for the open trainer position at an arts-focused boarding school in New Hampshire. The only available room is a glorified closet in an apartment with 3 guys: Jonas Voss, the aloof and attractive orchestra teacher, and his 2 rambunctious roommates. Sophie knows that training a bunch of privileged high school kids whose idea of a play is a chorus line instead of a walk-off homer is going to be a big change from the pro athletes she's used to. She wasn't expecting that these students would have big-time talent and even bigger-time problems. Sophie has troubles of her own. Jonas is a full-fledged grump who clearly doesn't want her near him or the precious piano he never plays. With sunny optimism, Sophie sets out to win over Jonas and help the kids she's growing attached to. But when her relationship with Jonas moves to the major leagues and plans change at the end of the season, they have to choose whether they are playing for keeps. That sounds adorable. It sounds fun. I think this might be something that I read over the holiday break that we have for Thanksgiving. Gonna really like that. And then the next book that has been on my TBR for a couple years, I believe, was also another Half Price Books find, and that was Unnatural Magic. This is a fantasy novel by C.M. Wagoner, and I will read this little description for you as well. So, Ona can write the parameters of a spell faster than any of the young men in her village school. But despite her incredible abilities, she's denied a place at the nation's premier arcane academy. Undaunted, she sails to the bustling city-state of Hexos, hoping to find a place at a university where they don't think there's anything untoward about providing a woman with a magical education. But as soon as Anna arrives, she's drawn into the mysterious murders of 4 trolls. Tsira is a troll who never quite fit into her clan despite being the leader's daughter. She decides to strike out on her own and look for work in a human city, but on her way she stumbles upon the body of a half-dead human soldier in the snow. As she slowly nurses him back to health, an unlikely bond forms between them, one that is tested when an unknown mage makes an attempt on Tsira's life. Soon, unbeknownst to each other, Anna and Sira both devote their considerable talents to finding out who is targeting trolls before their homeland is torn apart. So this has a lot of story elements that I really enjoy. I'm hoping it's going to be more like the fantasy stories I enjoyed in the last month rather than the ones that I didn't, because I have been burned by premises that sounded like they had my name written all over them, and then the execution left me lacking. So hopefully I wind up liking this. But yeah, I loved the combination of mystery and fantasy in the premise. All right, the next one is the brand new Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, which has been all over the internet, so I won't go into it too much, but basically I believe this is her take on the Snow White story, but it's not like a straightforward fairy tale retelling, although it does have big poison apple energy with these sprayed edges. It reminds me of like the green apple Jolly Rancher candy. That is the exact color of these pages. So, as I have mentioned before, I just got into reading T. Kingfisher's books this year, and I'm really liking them so far, so I didn't really have qualms about picking this one up new. And then the last book is a play called The Last Days of Judas Iscariot by Stephen Adly Gurgis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was actually a recommendation from somebody at one of my book clubs who is also a fellow theater person, fellow theater lover. Normally I don't tend to read a ton of plays in a year, but he spoke really highly of this, and the subject matter seems really interesting. It says that it's set in a time-bending, serio-comically imagined world between heaven and hell, and it's a philosophical meditation on the conflict between divine mercy and human free will that takes a close look at the eternal damnation of the Bible's most notorious sinner. I always thought that Judas had kind of a rough go of it in the Bible. He does something that's really terrible, like betraying somebody that you love to be executed by the state is bad. But then because he kills himself and he's also kind of seen as this character that's beyond redemption, that never seemed fully fair to me, especially when in the whole story, like the point of, Jesus's sacrifice is that it ushers in forgiveness and divine mercy for all humanity, even like people who do terrible things like betray their friends to the authorities and let them die in a horrible death. So I'm really curious to read this. I definitely think this is similar to the what ifs that I wish Tolkien had wrote. He did say, like, later in his life and in his career, he felt bad for the way that he had created the orcs to be inherently and irredeemably evil, because he felt that he basically consigned them to a life of original sin and got rid of their free will or their ability to change their ways. And I'm like, you know what? I wonder if he would have appreciated some of the meditations in this book because of that. So that's quite a few books. Whether I get to all of these in the month of October or not, I'm not really too worried about it, but this is what I'm choosing from. I am also really attempting to make more of a dent in reading the books that I've had on my TBR the longest, like my actual books that I own TBR for the longest. So you won't see a ton of library books here. I actually don't think I have any library books on this TBR, but that's partially just because I'm trying to prioritize reading some of the books that I already have. So if you have read any of these, let me know what you think of them. Just maybe don't spoiler the ones that I haven't read yet, because I would still like to go in and be surprised. But let me know what you thought, and let me know if you have any fun plans for October reads or anything else like that. As always, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.